Good morning, everybody. Dobré ráno všem přeji. This is Michael Stefan from Dex Innovation Center. Zdravím všechny v češtině rovněž, ať už jste fyzicky v Operu, nebo se s náma připojujete virtuálně odkudkoliv. Všechny vás vítám na EIT Health Morning Health Talk a jsme rádi, že jste se k nám připojili. The same goes to the international guests and the guest speakers that we have today joining us for the morning health talk of EIT Health. Welcome, Eva. Welcome, Preet. We will be still joined by Jo, one of the virtual guest speakers. I will continue in English for the first part of this event. I'm so happy that we have a really nice mixture of physical attendees in the center of Prague in Opera. So greetings to all of you that were brave enough to come there and are not from other parts of the Czech Republic or being quarantined, like, for example, myself today. I wanted to be with all the guys there in Opera as well, but as my girlfriend brought back a little souvenir from some of the smaller music festivals, I'm with you virtually because my quarantine is going to be ended very, very soon, but not today. So, welcome everybody again. We have quite an interesting amount, very quality people here today, so I'm very happy for that. Before we start, I just wanted to say a couple of technical things, which I tried to send you also over email in the last information. So first of all, we will be very glad and it will increase your experience from this morning health talk if we will be able to see all of you on your cameras if you are connecting virtually. So please switch it on if your internet bandwidth allows that. We will really appreciate that. The second point which I would like to raise here before we start is that the more we know about the organization you come from and your full name in the participant's name, we will also appreciate during the discussions. And if you have any kind of comments or questions, please try the functionality of the Zoom meeting, which is to raise your hand. This is something you will be able to find in the participant list. And whoever is moderating that part of this common session is going to notice that and give you a word once there is a time for it. So this is a last technical detail from my side. You are able to see the participants list of everybody that is here today with us, but let me give you a short brief. Who is here with us today? So, greetings to Vladimir Finstole from Blue Ocean Solutions. Greetings to Pavel Nevitsky from Mindpacks, Petr Škoda from Paris Health Cyber, Jakub Kozák from Detlaf, Jitka Vojtová from OZP, Daniel Soukup from EUC, Miroslav Palát from CheckMed, Kateřina Vacková from Luno, Jan Dudra from Hospital Mladá Boleslav, Jan Kreslav from Ministry of Industry and Trade, Veronika Bulková from MDT, Medical Data Transfers, Miroslav Petřík from Certicon, Markus Dettenhofer from CETEC, welcome. Then we should have Petr Struk from Ministry of Health, Ivan Duškov from VZP, Jindřich Finek from Faculty Hospital of Plzeň, Markéta Foldina-Helová from VOZP, Marek Potyš from Potyš Health Fund, Jan Kuban from Mild Blue, Lenka Rorová from Vitadio, Jiří Krechl from Czech Invest, Michal Zápotocký from Hospital Mladá Boleslav, Petr Vaňásek from Confidence Digital, Matěj Buzgo from Inocure, Alena Šteflová from Health, Milan Vocelka from State Institute for Drug Control SUKL, Michala Mrázková Healthbase, paní docentka Lenka Hocká from Czech Institute of Informatics, Robotics and Informatics, who is so kind to co-moderate the moderated discussion in the second part of this event. Thanks very much for that. Then we should also have Preet Cruz from Dermtest as a guest speaker, Joaf Fischer from Health IL as a guest speaker, and also we should have here Mr. Jiří Potůček from Medivare, Jana Hlaváčová from of Health, and my two colleagues who are joining from Opera. By the way, my last question is to the physical participants in the Opera space in Prague. How many of you are there, except from Dominika and Lorna as my colleagues?
8. I think I have counted 8, yeah.
Wonderful. So my estimation was pretty much correct, that we might have 1/3 of the participants physically, while 2/3 will be joining virtually. I think this is something that I was somehow estimating from the replies. I'm happy that that we can merge this as a hybrid event today, because this seems to be quite a norm from today or from past months as well, that we will have to merge virtual and physical platforms together in terms of anything. But now I would like to go directly to some of the content of today. Make yourself comfortable, and I'm giving my first word to Eva Guzek, who is joining us from Poland as a representative and risk regional lead of EIT Health. So Eva, please, can you say a little bit more about EIT Health?
Yes, I'll be happy to. Just a second. Okay, I hope you can see my screen. Dzień dobry. Good morning. My name is Eva Guzek. I work for the RIS Innovation Program at EIT Health InnoStars, and it is also my pleasure to welcome you on this event on behalf of our organization. And before I introduce the EIT Health and Regional Innovation Scheme very shortly, and just to give you an idea what kind of activities are available, and I would like to explain the context of today's meeting. So the morning health talks is a part of a series of meetings our partners organize across Europe to bring regional stakeholders together and discuss relevant health innovation related topics. And by the end of the year, we do hope that all 13 partners from 14 countries will organize such meetings. So the general idea is to meet 2 times a year in a form of a business breakfast, as much as it is possible in the current situation, and basically connect and network with the support also with our organization. So the main goal of the meeting is to have a moderated discussion with relevant stakeholders on the current local challenges in a given ecosystem. So as an organization, we believe it is very important to identify the relevant stakeholders and provide a platform where they can meet. And today, our partner, Dex Innovation Center, organized a session on the future of digital health and telemedicine, topic very relevant in today's pandemic world. So I'll be very interested to listen to the forthcoming organization. Before that, I would like to shortly introduce our organization and give you relevant examples of who we are and what we do. So EIT Health is a pan-European network. We are a public-private partnership that was established in 2015, as probably some of you already heard about the knowledge and innovation community. We have almost 150 partners that span areas from industry, business, education, and research. We are headquartered in Munich, and we have 7 regional offices to represent our partners and us locally. So looking at the European healthcare today, we see a lot of challenges. You know them most probably very well. So the aging population and the cost pressure and the rising burden of chronic diseases and multimorbidity, as well as not enough investment in prevention. So through our approach within the network, within the organization, we would like to deliver, and we have been successful so far, solutions and services which address those challenges. So within the community, we connect the relevant stakeholders from research, business, and education, and we, by that, create conducive environment for creating solutions to those pressing challenges. We call that approach knowledge triangle. So basically, we find that the most beneficial innovation happens at the intersection of the three areas. So here are some numbers, how it looks across the whole organization. I hope you can see the whole screen, but basically we have a good number of representatives from industry, from universities, healthcare providers, research payers, also incubators, clusters, and cities and regions. So the number and the scope is pretty well balanced. So as said previously, we are present across Europe. Our office, the office that I work with and where the regional innovation scheme is managed, is called InnoStars. And we work with partners from Hungary, Italy, Poland, and Portugal, and also manage the program where DEX is our prominent partner, but I will speak about it in a minute. So how this works in a more practical way on a daily basis. So our programs within the organizations are divided, into accelerator, campus, and innovation. So in those three pillars, we offer multiple opportunities in accelerator for the business growth. So those are activities from early stage ideas to support also full-blown companies. In campus, we offer educational opportunities from workshops and summer schools and e-labs and education for professionals and citizens. And in innovation, we try to deliver the most innovative services and solutions. So I'm happy to say that after almost 4 years, now we are in our 5th year of operation, we have been successful and delivered, and first of all, supported over 160 innovation projects. A good number of products and services went into the market. We supported over 700 startups and 36,000 graduates and professionals were trained. Those, of course, are numbers from the entire Europe. And one of the example in practice, since today's talk is on telemedicine, I thought I could give you an example of one of the innovation projects that is supported and was supported by EIT Health. This is Better at Home. So this solution, we were able to bring, first of all, several partners within our organizations, such as Medtronic from the UK, research institutions from Spain, and also public health providers from, well, also Spain, Madrid. But the project aims to bring well, this is a telemedicine solution, but to bring the possibility of looking after the patients straight from home. So this the team built a protocol to enhance the processes and to monitor and treat a variety of conditions that require hospitalization, which is very cost efficient, and also it enables less number of doctors to take care of a bigger number of patients. So basically, we were really happy to see that also public providers or hospitals were open to testing that innovation in a real environment. And last but not least, Regional Innovation Scheme. It is a very important program within our activity. It plays a very important role in EIT Health. This is maybe from the beginning, this is an outreach program. So we try to connect partners and work with partners who, according to the European Innovation Scoreboard, which by the way was recently published, so the numbers might a bit change, but in general, they are a bit less advanced in terms of innovation in healthcare. They are considered as modest and moderate innovators. So basically, within the program, we work with multiple partners who come from different backgrounds, such as DEX Innovation Center, but also universities, also biotechnology parks, also industry and SMEs. Currently, we have 14, we call them hubs. Sorry, this is not the right. Okay, so you can see our partners and their location across Europe. We very much invest on top of sharing experiences and programs from EIT Health. We very much invest in the ecosystem development. So we offer multiple opportunities for regions to learn and overcome challenges in their local context. So by bringing good practices and experiences from other regions, but also we very much invest and encourage local stakeholders to work together. So the morning health talk is one of those initiatives that we try to encourage within the program, but we offer many other. I would not go into detail. I'm sure Dex is very much is very much well informed. Maybe last but not least, I would like to briefly talk about the possibilities within the REIS. One of our most successful initiatives is local innovation call. So this is a call that supports projects on the level of a proof of concept. So the financial support is up to 75,000 per project, and I'm happy to say that idea from the Czech Republic, presented by a company Inocure, has been very well evaluated and also received the support. So their idea basically aims to end testing on animals. And they are working within the project on the, better predictability on the currently used preclinical testing. So those are the numbers for the entire call. However, I guess the Czech example is most important in this context. I would also like to encourage you to follow up with Michał and his team, because the call will open this year, 1st of October. So if there are any teams or people who are interested, please contact my colleagues. The call will be open for the entire month. We know that in these regions, proof of concept funds are very much limited. So the requirement is to have a startup or a business on board within the consortium, but generally the process is, application is fairly easy. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. If there are any questions related to EIT Health or what we do within REIS, I'm very happy to answer them. And if not, I will give the floor to Michał and other guests. Thank you.
Very much, Eva. It's a pleasure to be part of the EIT Health family for more than 2 years now with DEX Innovation Center, so we really appreciate. And we are very happy that we can actually launch this morning health talk series. This is the first one, but we will still continue with this morning health talks in the next year. Definitely, there will be at least 2 more morning health talks in the next year, as far as I know.
The idea is to initiate certain activities and then have them last, or we do hope that those kind of meetings will happen with or without EIT Health. That will be a great.
They will. Thanks. Okay, thanks very much, Eva. Let me tell you a little bit about DEX Innovation Center as well at the very beginning before going into the real content of today. I will try to be very brief and start the topic of this event and give a floor to the first guest speaker. But first, I will try to share my screen here with you as well. So, as I said, I'm coming from DEX Innovation Center together with my colleagues who are with you in Opera Center. We are based in Liberec. We have also an office in Prague, but we are working on a national basis and also on an international basis. We are a private innovation center, and we have a mission to improve societies through digital innovation research. This is something we do in the past 8 years, and we focus predominantly on health, energy, and transportation industries, and supporting impactful digital innovations in these areas. We have four main activities that we do here at DEX Innovation Center. We raise funds, we co-create new products, we build new startups, new technological teams, and we also educate. Just to give you a little brief, in terms of raising the funds, we are able to raise funds for 14 large-scale projects in the last 7 years. In terms of creating new products, we are part of developments of more than 25 products together with 6 enabling ecosystems, including the Czech Republic ecosystems, but also the European ones. We are partner in the full cycle of the creation process, starting with the design and testing through the pilot activities and towards the capitalization and exploitation of the new inventions. For example, from the past programs that we are running for startups and technological teams, we have currently more than 60 alumni startups in our portfolio, including some of the ones that you might know. Whalebone, one of the most hype security startups currently from the Czech Republic, and including InnoClear, who is now on the call with us today as well. They received the third highest mark in terms of the innovation projects, and they had the chance to go in the Czech delegation to Taiwan as well. We are doing multiple stuff for startups and teams, like Startup Europe Week, like hackathons, like boot camps and acceleration programs, but also virtual incubations for startups. And in terms of education, for example, one of the initiatives that we are launching at the moment is a project called InnoSchool that is trying to use a serious game educational approach on secondary schools to teach the students how to think and how to start social entrepreneurship. This is one of the initiatives we do in the educational sector, together with running workshops in our microfab lab that we have here in Liberec, including some equipment for 3D printing, for IoT, for printed circuit boards, and robotics as well. So as Eva said, we are part of the family of EIT Health for more than 2 years now. But in addition to that, we are also a hub for EIT InnoEnergy here. So we are doing a lot of support for energy-related innovations, for students, for startups, for corporations. I would like to highlight now only 3 things that we are currently going to organize here in the Czech Republic, so you know about it. In case that you would like to be somehow involved in these, please let me know. The first thing in terms of time that is going to happen here in Liberec is a hackathon, which is called a Dexit Hack. It's going to be organized in the middle of October here in Liberec for primarily secondary school students from industrial schools and first levels of university students with knowledge on Arduino, mechanical design, and electronic design. And we are going to work on the challenges based on an emergency lung ventilator that we have actually developed in spring during the COVID situation here in the Czech Republic. And we were able to develop an emergency lung ventilator that is almost completely dismantleable from a 3D printer. So if you want to be somehow involved in the Dexit Hackathon, please let me know. It's happening in the middle of October here in Liberec. The second big thing that we do in terms of supporting health innovations now in autumn is something that we call an EIT Health Innovation Day. This is a very intensive day, primarily for startups and university students and PhD researchers. This year it's going to happen on the 23rd of October. It's going to be a hybrid event also. And it's a day full of multidisciplinary group work of students from different backgrounds on a challenge that is related and faced to the students in the morning, together with some design thinking and presentation skills workshops. We had a lovely team that won the last Innovation Days, formed of 3 female students, each of them being currently at the moment in different parts of world, like London, US, and Denmark. So it's a very wonderful opportunity for students, startups to network and get contacts to go abroad as well. The last activity from our side, which I want to highlight here, is an acceleration program that we are going to run from the 2nd of November until 11th of December in online format purely. This is the acceleration program for Czech startups pursuing digital health innovations. If you want to be somehow involved in that, also in the same way as for the Innovation Day or for the hackathon, please get in touch with me. These are all 3 events that we are going to organize under EIT Health brand as well in autumn here. This was everything from my side regarding where I'm from, where my colleagues are from. So let's start to go into the topic of today's morning health talk, which is actually the future of digital health and telemedicine. We have 2 great guest speakers, Pete Cruz and Joa Fischer, who will get their time very, very soon. But first of all, let me try to put 4 slides here before we start. The first one is just highlighting a kind of relationship between the digital health and telemedicine, because we are going to talk about both today. Telemedicine is one of the aspects, one of the elements of digital health only. And when we are talking about digital health, we of course mean a lot of other stuff, not just telemedicine. We are talking about sensors, we are talking about applications, we are talking about data integrations, different other tools, virtual assistants, robotics, and so on. The second thing which I would like to highlight for me here, that digital health is so wide that it doesn't allow only for focused cooperation of 1 or 2 or 3 different profiles of entities. We have to think about, of course, different stakeholders from different profiles to make the digital health and telemedicine go forward. And that's why we are so happy that you are here participating from many different backgrounds. We have here companies and startups today with us. We have here the policymakers. We have here also representative of educational and research and investors and insurers. But also we have a couple of representatives from associations and the hospitals themselves and the doctors. So this is really important, together with having the primary focus on patients and citizens as the outcome. And we have to take that in mind when talking about digital health progress. When we look around Czech Republic, obviously we can find a lot of states that are more advanced than in Czech Republic in terms of support of digital health and telemedicine. This is only one of the examples from around which you perhaps already know from Germany. They have set up the German Digital Healthcare Act, not that far away from today, enabling also digital health solutions being reimbursed from their financial system in case that they are put on the list of the approved digital health solutions. But there are multiple other countries that were going the same way and which are even more advanced in Germany. As you can see, this is an example of another country that is outside of European Union, which already has a very detailed and visually nice vision how they would like to convert and merge the classical health services into the digital health solutions. This specific example over a lifetime of a person is being exemplified from an Australia vision for digital health. The last thing which I want to highlight here before I give the word to guest speakers is something that is called a digital health index. It is kind of ranking the countries across the whole world in terms of their preparation for digital health market. As you can see, on the first place we have Estonia. On the 4th place we have Israel. And some of the countries that are ranking very high in terms of Europe is obviously the Scandinavian countries, Spain, Portugal, Netherlands, Austria, and Belgium, from my experience as well, even before Germany. So I'm so happy that in terms of the other content of today, we are actually representing here the country with highest ranking, Estonia, and the country with ranking number 4, Israel. and we will be happy to see any kind of latest developments in Israel and Estonia. So this is everything from my side for now, and I'm giving the word to our first guest speaker, which is Preet Cruz from Dermtest. Preet, the floor is yours, and we'll be so happy to learn more about how the things are going in Estonia.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for inviting, and thank you for the intro. Just as you quit sharing your screen, then I can share mine and I can put on the slides. Thanks. Okay. Is everybody seeing this?
Yes, and before you start, Preet, just a highlight for all the participants with us. There is not going to be a specific Q&A after your only presentation. We will set up a Q&A after both of these guest speakers together at the end. So please, if you have any questions and you would like to raise your hands, do it at the end of the second guest speech, because then we will have 10 minutes for questions on both of the presentations from Estonia and Israel together. So let's go for Estonia, Preet.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So Estonians really like the nature, and for like tens of thousands of years we have believed that health comes from the nature and being in the nature and being in contact with the nature. But in order to do that, we need to have a super darn efficient government and life that it just gives us the time to be in the nature. So zero bureaucracy and zero additional tasks is something what we want to gain, and this is also in digital health and in healthcare. If something is duplicated, then we typically hate this. And I'm really glad to share a little bit about the digital health and telemedicine in Estonia, but it also quite a lot starts from the e-government and digital society infrastructure. 10 minutes is a short time for this, but I will try to do my best. So maybe the core thing, maybe you have heard about the X-Road. So the X-Road is virtual open source data exchange layer, which is secure and enables decentralized and distributed data exchange. So this was started in already in the 90s, where government institutions were switching papers all around, and then thought that okay, this shouldn't be happening. Let's make a common exchange layer. And this common exchange layer has actually enabled to securely connect all the clinical like healthcare participants into a common network and start sharing data. So basically what it does, it enables to share information from a hospital to a GP, from an insurance to a medicines registry, and so on. And the core thing here is that it is secure. Every person has to have a secure authentication method. We have the ID card, or we have a mobile ID, so it's a two-factor authentication. And already in 2006, all doctors and pharmacists had to start using this authentication. So X-Road is the basis for data exchange, and with every new service we put on here, so whether it's e-prescription or telemedicine or e-consultation or some kind of service, it enables to get the valuable data what is needed to provide the service. So for example, in case of digital prescription, you need to know if when a prescription is given out, you need to know that a patient is insured by the insurance fund, so the insurance registry. The patient's doctor has a license, so the doctor licensing registry. that the medicine, what is prescribed, is actually reimbursed, that the medicine is secure and it is in the clinical medicine registry, that the person is actually an Estonian resident, and so on. So every service in the digital society basically means that we connect the different data pieces together and provide a service. There are over 2,000 different e-government services, and I don't know how many there are on healthcare, but what I can say is that 80% of the data exchange is on the X road is health data. Yeah, electronic ID card is compulsory. 70% of people use this. The star service number 1, I think, which started really quickly, was e-prescribing. Basically, when e-prescribing was launched in 2010, the Prime Minister said it's the worst e-service that is out there. 6 months later, the Prime Minister said it's the best e-service that is out there. So it wasn't. This shows actually that the launch of e-prescribing service was super quick. So just in 3 years, we got from like 10% of digital prescriptions into 95% of digital prescriptions. But digital prescribing isn't a new thing. It has been quite a lot evaluated. There are articles there. I did my master thesis on digital prescription, and I think it's the most seamless and easily usable service. What took a bit more time was actually to get the numbers up for the health information exchange. So if you go to doctor as a patient, the doctor makes ambulatory epic crisis, sends it to the health information system central database as a CDA HL7 document. And this uptake has been a bit slower. So we see rather kind of like an exponential curve here. And this is basically, you have 2 million on the left, and you have the different queries of healthcare professionals looking at the data, and then documents sent per month. So what we see here is in the beginning, the green line was a bit higher. First, you had to build up the data in the system. And then later on, now it's more about queries. Some people say that 80% of the decision with the patient can be done based on the previous health data. And I think this is what we're seeing here. And this is going quite well. Michal showed the ranking on digital health. I don't know what's this about exactly, what are the metrics, but the benchmark studies conducted by the EU in 2012, yes, put also Estonia top in Estonia, in Europe, and mainly the winning thing was information change in the EHR. And health information exchange overall, hospitals, GPs, and so on. And you can see here that the purple part is telehealth. So telehealth hasn't been that much of a thing since last year. So yeah, and 2018, the same results. So about EHRs and health information exchange, there's first place, second place. But when we look at telehealth adoption, then in 2018 we were 5th, and the adoption rating from 0 to 4 is still like super low. So and the reason is, I think, twofold. First of all, when we define telehealth, then we have to narrow down. Let's take, for example, family doctors sending consultations to specialist doctors. This has grown now exponentially, but is still about 6% of all ambulatory cases. But when COVID struck, then this served as a super big catalyst. The Health Insurance Fund was already preparing to implement remote consultations in 2021. It should be in the reimbursement list. So basically patient consulting with a doctor on phone or on video or in chat format. And when COVID struck, basically some of the work had been already done in terms of preparation, And what happened in basically 2 weeks was that the health insurance fund, we have one health insurance fund, which covers like 80–90% of the whole financing and contracts in the healthcare system. Insurance fund just put this remote consultation telehealth into the reimbursement list in 2 weeks time. And this meant that when there was a full lockdown in the mid of March, the first month, the mid-March to mid-April, 58% of all ambulatory doctor visits were done as telehealth visits. So this meant basically 95% it was phone-based telehealth, but there was also video, because some hospitals launched in there was a whole thing on the news that every hospital and every development company and software company said that, okay, in 2 weeks we started telehealth, in 2 weeks we did this, in 2 weeks we did this. So it was actually a really great momentum. And the momentum, I think, was because there was this reimbursement incentives. And now there's lots of evaluation going on. So what actually happened, in what cases ambulatory visits are important, in what cases they're not. But what happened is that the result was basically, the learning points is that mostly telephone. There were a lot of problems with doctors, hospitals not having laptops, microphones, cameras, which not enough of those. Quite often there was also Skype and Messenger ruled, although the health insurance fund said that security is the responsibility of the hospitals, but still the main common use cases, common solutions were used. But in the end, the satisfaction was high. Doctors said that it doesn't substitute face-to-face, but doctors and patients were mostly really, really happy about this. And it will continue. So it was extended now by the beginning this month. And the health insurance fund is now evaluating a little bit, looking back and seeing what happened. All the data, what was gathered during this fast pace of 2 or 3 months, is now put together to analyze the actual impact of this situation, whether it has increased prescriptions, increased some other problems, or whether it has actually worked very well. But doctors are happy and people are happy, and the health insurance fund is leading now the work to now get starting with the remote therapy and remote monitoring, which are a bit different, harder parts. As for other e-health services, which I want to touch a little bit, so Estonia licensed the NICE evidence standards framework for digital health technologies. What the NICE framework actually does is that it splits digital health services into functional components. Telehealth, telemedicine, remote consultation, remote monitoring, it's a mess there. But what NICE does is that it says that it provides evidence standards needed for different components of digital health. We can have AI at one part, we can have just communication without any AI or any calculations, and NICE provided this. And what the Estonia is doing now is that in order to provide other digital services like a clearer and more understandable path, we don't need to code it every time, then there are these evidence standards. And the TalTech also developed a solution suggestions on how to implement financial incentives for these different types of functionalities. So this is I think really important. Some of the functionalities have pretty good incentives in the system for financing, but nothing actually works without incentives and financing. So we built on the NICE classification framework, and now the Health Insurance Fund is looking to find incentives, for example, to simple diary apps but also to really complicated automatic monitoring. And we're supporting this by a dedicated curriculum for digital health at Caltech and the Research Center. And we recently implemented this like guidance for hospitals how to evaluate telehealth, because it has been so fast and there's not enough evaluation, but we actually want to know what happened and how we could improve these solutions, and in what cases it works and in what cases doesn't. Just a few words about DermTest, so which I'm running. So DermTest is a medical photo management software with all the relevant capabilities. We're really complemented to the Estonian digital health framework. About 100, well, all the regions are covered, but 15% of primary providers and the largest hospitals are involved. It enables different type of photo management and is really easy to implement. And it also connects to the security framework is based on the governmental authentication service. And we also transfer the data based on the government set standards for health information. Doing a lot of interesting research about this and complementing the whole pathway. So I want to sum up here because, but hopefully you have a number of questions. So what's for future in for e-health in Estonia? So we're looking into involving other different specific disease-based or the specific digital services which are not developed by the government or like led by the government or initiated by the government, such as the architecture and the health information exchange, but now these small different services which can be complemented to the whole system. So this is currently on track, and we're building a consent system so that all the data that has been piled up in the health information system, so that if I have an app and I want to pull my health data into my app, and this app says gives me I don't know, disease specific guidances, then I should be able to do this. And it needs a really strong government API system. We're moving from document-based to event-based data management, and definitely value-based care is something everybody's talking about right now, and all the incentives should be supporting the value-based care. And again, once only principle. If some information is gathered somewhere, it shouldn't be gathered again. So this is the once only principle. And what's really difficult, I think, is like switching to this event-based information structures. Data quality has been an issue in implementing services or doing research. There's lots of data, but the data quality isn't still super great because of the format how it has been collected. And there is still, I think more evaluation and visioning is needed. We're doing a lot of things all the time, and this is great, and this is good for the kind of good of the let's do it culture, being able to change culture. But at the same time, now if the system gets more complicated, there is more visioning and evaluation and strong governance needed. So this is being worked on, and financial incentives support this. So yeah, a very brief overview from me on Estonian telehealth and digital health. Just very small fractions can do it 10 times longer, but I hope it has been interesting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Preet. We really appreciate. So if anybody has any questions, please keep them for the time after the second presentation as well from Israel. If you can stop sharing, Preet, as well. I will kindly ask the second guest speaker, Yoav from Health IE, to join us with the shared screen as well. And hello, Yoav, and tell us a bit more about the situation in Israel, because here in the Czech Republic, obviously the telemedicine uptake went heavily up with the COVID situation, which was a positive side of COVID. So how is it in Israel?
Good. So first, can everyone hear me?
Yes, correct.
Great. So hello from Tel Aviv. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. go. Fantastic. Everyone see?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll get to the story of telehealth at the end, and I want to actually start this from a different perspective. And first I'm going to begin and tell you what Health IL is, because it's critical to the story. So Health IL is actually the leading digital health ecosystem in Israel. It's very different. We're not an accelerator program. There's no startups, things of that nature. I don't do mentors and pitch nights and whatever. So Health IL is a government-backed organization funded by the Israeli Ministry of Economics, of all places. And what we do is we work with all the healthcare stakeholders on one side, which is three groups, the HMOs, the hospitals, of course, and all the corporate multinationals who have physical presence here. Pharma companies, companies like GE, also the technological companies, AWS, NVIDIA, Oracle, whatever, everyone who's a stakeholder in health. And we begin with them on a formal process of understanding their needs and challenges and how they work, meaning what resources do they have, what they don't have, is there money, is there not money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we begin with them, and then we end with the actual solution, right? This is where the startups and the technological solutions fit in. So I'm in this interesting position where I know intimately what the quote-unquote customer wants and needs, and primarily why. And I also know, on the other hand, every single digital health startup in Israel, all of them, at every stage. The other critical factor of this that's relevant is that because I'm a governmental nonprofit, I work with everyone. I work with all of the governmental friends of ours, the Ministry of Health, the Innovation Authority, et cetera, but I also work with everyone else, the accelerators, the investors, the incubators. And the reason I'm able to work with everyone is because it's an organization that's funded by the Ministry of Economy. I'm non-aligned, which basically means, in other words, that people tell me the truth about the difficulty of integrating healthcare innovation, right, which is critical to what I do. So back to our story. Just a little bit about Israel. I'm sure you've heard. Israel really is kind of this leader in digital health, or at least, it presents itself very well. And there's a lot of key advantages. The first is that the core technological drivers of healthcare innovation, whether it be sensors, whether it be machine learning, deep learning, whether it be cloud compute, whatever, really do exist here at a very high level. There's a proven culture of innovation. There's a very high density of highly technical people. But more than that, there's an infrastructure that supports it here. Israel has had about 30 years now of digitized healthcare data that they've collected, the country has collected. But there's also a lot of infrastructure support. There's a lot of money, the government's involved. There's a lot of grants from the Israeli Innovation Authority. There's about 80 accelerators, 9 government-backed incubators just for health. And there's about 40 to 45 multinational companies involved in healthcare who have physical presence here in Israel. So this creates this big wave of healthcare innovation, which is great. But, and there's always a but. So if I look at this kind of objectively, I see 3 things, right? Everyone wants to improve health, everyone wants to improve workflow and improve economics. For a successful digital health company to exist, it needs to do all 3, right? So when I look at all the healthcare innovation in Israel, everyone wants to improve health. I take that as a given in one facet or another. But there's a big question regarding improving workflow and improving economics, right? Meaning that understanding of how things work in Israel is critical. But even more than that, understanding how it works in other countries, because Israel is very small, is also critical, right? There's very huge structural differences between Israel and the Czech Republic, much like there's big differences between the Czech Republic and India, for example. And that's kind of a problem, right? That understanding. And on top of that, overlay policy, and it becomes very, 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 very complex. So I'll tell you from my perspective what I see. And I want to approach it from the perspective of these challenges. So over the last 2 years, Health IL has cataloged over 1,000 challenges, some big, some small. Very recently, we did this kind of initial study where we looked at all the challenges and the amount of healthcare organizations that cite these issues as a challenge, and I compared it to the amount of startups in Israel who are offering solutions. What I get is this. This is effectively kind of a supply and demand ratio. Over here, there's a huge amount of startups who are offering solutions to this thing. On this far end, there's very few startups who offer, but a lot of healthcare organizations who are looking for this solution, if that makes sense. So things that are on the left, there's almost an oversupply of startups who are offering solutions for this specific issue. And things on the far right is the opposite, where there's not enough startups and there's a very large demand from healthcare organizations that I work with. I'm just going to summarize, right? The oversupplied, a lot of post-op patient monitoring, indoor navigation of all things, which is interesting. There's a lot of companies in Israel doing indoor navigation, not a lot of demand for it from hospitals. Of course, tons of decision support tools. Parking optimization is an interesting one. But then on the right, you see all these things. Now, this was the situation before COVID-19. And now I want to get into what happened. So already in early February, Health.il was working with the healthcare organizations that we already work with to assess their specific and unique challenges during the beginning of the first wave, right? The first peak where everyone was in crisis mode. So we worked with them and we assessed everything. We came up with about 50 unique challenges that were kind of categorized into 8 things, into 8 broad categories. This is what they are. Right. This was the unique specific things for that first wave. I think this is important because, we worked a lot with countries outside of Israel, and the challenges were the same. Think back to, end of February, March, April. This is what we saw here. So we put these things online, right? And we said, open call. Any startup, any technological service provider can come in and provide a solution. But there was a challenge with this. There was a difficulty in making these matches. And I want to show you this, just if I expand this one category, right? Operations and logistics. You don't have to read it all, but I expanded this. Here's the 15 specific sub-challenges in this category of operations and logistics. And you can see here that of all these 15, there's really only 2 things where there's an actual technological solution that I could plug in. The rest of these things are not, right? Improve accessibility of water or reduce the exposure of new and unused equipment to non-sterile environments. These are things that are decidedly low-tech or in many situations non-tech, right? And this creates kind of another mismatch between the needs of the healthcare organizations and what the solutions are that are provided by the startups, if that makes sense. So I'll kind of summarize this. Before, there were certain key challenges that were not being addressed. I showed you, and I'll share this document later and you can see the details. There's workflow and process issues that we talked about, and there's healthcare economic issues. During that first peak, February, March, April, there were many challenges that were being addressed there were many challenges that the health organizations, described that I simply could not find a technological solution that could help because they're not technological challenges. There were certain things that had excellent solutions. Israel, what was other interesting about this was that the workflows and the process issues were relaxed, right? The healthcare organizations were willing to just try stuff out, whether or not it worked with the workflows and processes or whether it did not. It didn't really matter to them at the time. And there was no real consideration of health economics. Everyone kind of delayed that whole discussion till the future. So this is kind of what it looked like. Here was the active cases in those first 3 months. Here were the amount of submissions on that website. You can see the peak. Here's the attention that healthcare organizations actually could dedicate to looking at these solutions. And this was because in these critical months, they were strictly in crisis mode. They simply did not have the bandwidth and capacity to even try to assess these solutions. On the other hand, here was the urgency. So we've moved beyond this and things have relaxed a little bit. And we've come into kind of this routine of COVID-19, which I know you're also kind of dealing with, right? And if I summarize the big challenges during February, March, April, there was a lot of emphasis on PPE and on safety, procurement and equipment, detection and screening. Now what we're seeing is a shift into this routine where the needs and challenges with healthcare organizations fall into continuum of care, which is exactly where telemedicine and telehealth and remote monitoring come in. But there's a lot of operational management stuff, supply chain, logistics, the administration and operation, things like, you know, intra-organizational communication fits into there, and also how do you deal with population health, specifically for at-risk and chronic demographics. This is also where telehealth come in. So to finalize with telehealth, I want to give you the example of it to show you what we did. By the way, this here is where there's a lot of opportunity for startups, right? Because this, as challenging as it is, and as much as people don't know what this will look like in the future, it's an opportunity for startups to kind of help form and create that future. So let's go into telehealth. So before Corona, there were two big things. A lot of usage on app. Every single HMO has their own app. Scheduling, looking at results, this, that, whatever, wonderful. It's been working great. And for those that need, there's also the, you know, in-phone operators who can help. That's wonderful. So during these peak months, February, March, April, and even continuing a little bit into May, the same two things existed, the apps that already were there and the phone bank, plus WhatsApp. WhatsApp is extremely popular in Israel, and it was used widely by the healthcare community, even though it's not HIPAA compliant or GDPR compliant or secure or whatever. WhatsApp became kind of a go-to tool, right? I had consultations over WhatsApp. Take a photo of, you know, what you think is psoriasis on your skin, send it to your dermatologist, etc. So big question here, where are all the startups in this, right? Israel has a bunch of telehealth startups, some you may even know, companies like TytoCare, but also other ones that are even FDA approved already, BioBeat, Oxytone, etc. Where were they in this situation? And this is where I want to get into the telehealth component. The answer is that they were there, but they simply weren't used. And they were used in a very limited scope. And the reason is simple. It's because the ecosystem isn't ready. The healthcare systems in Israel currently do not have the capability for wide-scale rollout, right? And that capability comes from a number of different things, from the infrastructure support, from re-educating the care practitioners and the caregivers, from the integration of what tools like TytoCare and Oxytone and BioBeat and how that flows through informationally down to the care provider, all the way down to things from the startup perspective. For example, supply and supply chain considerations. The fact that a company like Tyto is out there does not necessarily mean that they currently have the capacity to do 9 million people in Israel, right? These are all considerations that behind the scenes severely affected the ability to have wide-scale rollout of telehealth. So what's going to happen in the future with this? Israel has just announced recently at the governmental level that they're going to dedicate a little bit over $1 billion shekels, which if I do math really quickly, that's about 250 million euros for that infrastructure, which includes working to increase the capability, the telecom infrastructure behind it, the re-education, all of these things that during the peak limited the ability to have wide-scale rollout of telehealth. Because no one denies that telehealth is going to be a critical component of this future COVID-19 routine, but it requires a lot of help and a lot of money to support it. So just to summarize quickly, I think that there's a lot of opportunity, as I said, and there's a lot of interest in advancing and incorporating healthcare. And there's a lot of motivation from the government, but the complexity, and I would say even the difficulty of integrating telehealth is always going to be there. It's still there behind the scenes. Whether it be, you know, from the perspective of the data integration, whether it be from the perspective of highlighting most effective data, whether it be from the perspective of supply chain considerations, whatever it is, these constraints affect all the stakeholders. And in order to have wide-scale adoption, at least here in Israel, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. So that's about it. Thank you very much. I hope I gave kind of a different perspective on it, at least from the perspective of the healthcare organizations where I live. And thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, for interesting data and perspective from Israel. I'm opening the floor for any kind of questions from anybody from the virtual space or the physical space from Opera. If you have any questions for Preet or from Yoav, please try to raise your hand within the functionality inside of there. If you are in the physical space, try to show to my colleagues that they are raising the hands on behalf of you, and we will give you a floor now for any questions for Israel or Estonia.
We have a question.
Lenka, what is your question? Go ahead.
First, I would like to thank both speakers for very interesting talks. And my question concerns the standards, because that's something that is not yet fully solved in the Czech Republic. And I know that both Estonia and Israel are running the health informatics standards very successfully and now also very smoothly. So what is your experience, and especially what was the way towards just pushing these standards forward and the decision making on the governmental level in this area?
I guess I'll start. Apologies, you can go after me. Okay, there's a very big difference between what, at least from Israel, in Israel, between the standards that exist and where the standards need to be. Fortunately, I'm involved in a lot of these things. Unfortunately, I can tell you the reality. And the reality is that the standards here are not they're not directly aligned with international standards, right? Israel built a lot of these standards 20, 25 years ago when there was nothing outside of Israel. So they built homegrown solutions, right? Right now, the entire country is on an EMR system that only exists here, which was great 15 years ago, but now is a problem, right? So things like, Israel's on ICD-9 when everyone else is moving to ICD-11 very soon. FHIR has not been fully integrated here. And that's because, Israel built their own types of things. Now, there are a lot of efforts underway to try to bring Israel up to international standards. It is still very complex, right? There's a lot of politicking involved. There's a lot of regulatory aspects involved, right? Cloud computing, allowed, not allowed, data ownership, who really owns it. All of these things were easy 20 years ago in Israel because Israel was one of the first to digitize, but they were not solved then, and so now they're becoming a problem, right? Just a brief example, just with data ownership, it is still not defined. So right now in Israel, there's 3 different bodies who are selling my data. The Ministry of Health claims ownership, and they can sell it. My HMO is also selling it. Every hospital I've been to is also selling it, right? None of them have ownership, but I don't have ownership either of my own healthcare data. So that's the situation in Israel. Israel used to be very well ahead because they started very early, but because they built homegrown solutions, they have not, the paths have diverged. The world is going in one way, Israel needs to close the gap, and quickly, and that's the reality of it.
Yeah, I can maybe add to your thanks. So in Estonia, I think it's somewhere in the middle. So we started early on, also in 2005, but then we were able to adapt quite some number of standards. The question is more about implementation of the standards and what role the government is taking in the digital infrastructure, in the health information exchange. In our case, the government took the role of being the connector, providing the architecture, but all the hospitals, primary care providers, they had to integrate to the central architecture and put the documents, put the medical data into government set document standards. So we had the CDA HL7, and it's like a document-based system. So it's slow, but it works. So documents can be sent and can be received. And how we managed to do this is that there was a dedicated organization of eHealth Foundation, which captured the main stakeholders in the healthcare system. It wasn't only top down, but it was like kind of a landscape organization covering the different main actors like primary care, big hospitals, ambulance services providers, and so on. So that it would be as efficient as possible. In terms of data ownership, there is the patient is the owner of the data, and the patient can see if somebody has checked their data. The patient can lock their data for doctors to use. They can take out their data. So it's everywhere you go, like you own the data. So you can go to hospital and say that I want my data. You can go with your app to the health information systems responsible person and by law say that I want my data into this app. Technically it's not there yet, but by law it's there. So, but yes, the problem in Estonia right now is that all the documents which we have gathered, and they are in a document-based format. So we basically made like paper-based into document-based, and it's like digital. But now we're building like a mapping system, how to get from documents to FHIR event-based system. So like how the document-based system should be transferred into an event-based system. And this is super important because if we want to build like outcome-based healthcare, value-based healthcare, then we need to look a patient not as a care provision document, but like as a patient case with different data points along the kind of care provision timeline. So in some it's also has been it's complicated now because of the document-based approach, but the standards are there, and I think it's possible in 2 or 3 years the government is investing quite a lot to make the data transfer event-based.
Great, thanks very much. There is a question coming from the physical space in Opera.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yes, very well.
Awesome. So my question is about telehealth. I guess it's both for Estonia and Israel. It's so how do you see it in a few years when I focus just on this part of telehealth that now can be covered by WhatsApp probably, or is also in the Czech Republic. So I just need to call my doctor, ask, what should I do? So do you see another app like WhatsApp copy that will be just pushed by the government to everyone's phone and then everyone will be using this app, or there will be just loads of apps for different purposes and people will get lost in that? This is, yeah, so how do you see it? How do you see this going forward?
You want to start with this one? Let's switch. You go first this time.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually a really good question because so sometimes it's the phone or WhatsApp, sometimes another device. And I think here right now the insurance is also a bit hesitant whether they want to push like a central telehealth solution or not. As I'm coming from the technology background, I'm seeing there are a lot of problems in asking patients to like connect with one like central app, because why Estonian system has worked actually is because it's not like a central end user service. So the government provides the infrastructure, but the hospitals decide whether the what kind of end user like softwares are used either by patients or by doctors. So I think like I think there are too many problems you come against if you implement like government WhatsApp for doctor-patient communication. I think this is not feasible, but at the same time, the government should be pushing the minimum standards of what solutions can be used, so that there is some certification system, like a top 5 or top 5 providers of these telehealth, and you say how these telehealth solutions have to be integrated, tested, what is the security standards, and this should be published. So it should be somehow kind of like a multi-app system, but it shouldn't be like just chaos and everybody use what they can, but rather there should be push towards structuring the telehealth remote consultation technology space. So in Germany, for example, they have a certified list at the government level with like 20 different providers who had to kind of like do a lot of regulatory like checks. And I think in Estonia, I actually hope that we're moving in the same way, because otherwise it either will be too many stuff on the market, or there will be too many problems in providing the a top-down best solution, which nobody knows what's the best solution, because it really depends on the different use cases.
So from my perspective, I think it's really important to understand two things. A, the core of WhatsApp is not clinical, right? It's a connectivity tool. It's an information exchange tool. That's it. The fact that it's wonderfully efficient, the fact that it has a bunch of cool features, great. But it filled the gap that was needed from a connectivity perspective during Corona, not from a clinical perspective, right? And I completely agree with Preet that it did not replace the need for one-on-one consultations. It added another layer which could at best be used as a filtering, right? Great, I saw the photo of your skin, looks fine. Or I saw the photo of your skin, I have no idea what it is, come in anyhow. So it adds on another layer that could be used. That's the first thing, is that the key of WhatsApp was the connectivity. The second thing is that I see WhatsApp as living on the spectrum of all this telehealth, right? The first is WhatsApp here, which is just connectivity. And the far right is things that are actually diagnostic, right? FDA approved, CE mark diagnostic. Imagine whatever that is. Imagine some app that can scan your skin for psoriasis and is approved FDA CE mark diagnostic. That's the other thing. In between, there's a bunch of stuff, right? If I move a little bit here, there's decision support. There's a ton of these. If I move here, there's kind of clinical information tools. A great example of this is a company in Israel called K-Health, which actually sits on top of the application that I have for my HMO, right? K-Health is an app that just aggregates medical information. I can just put in, I'm feeling this. K-Health will scan everyone in my HMO and say 80% of the people have a fever, or 20% had this, or whatever, contact your doctor. So I think they will converge, in my opinion. I think these connectivity tools will try a little bit to add on more layers that are more clinical. You can see this with Apple making a lot of inroads into healthcare, right? Their new Apple Watch had like a 600,000 people study for AFib or something, absolutely ridiculous. So it's very easy for them to add on another layer and say, okay, we already have this, let's add on the connectivity portion to the doctor, which is what WhatsApp is. But I can also see the things from this perspective, the diagnostic, moving closer and closer to the connectivity. So I do think that they will start to converge. I don't know which tool is going to be the winner of this, but I see it as a spectrum, basically, if that makes sense. And WhatsApp is just one side of that entire telehealth spectrum.
I maybe add one example of what we did with DermTest. So DermTest started as a GP to specialist image transfer management system. Then we switched into a clinical photo management system for like on spot. For GP, they had previously everything in exactly phones, emails, patients sending everywhere. And also when they made their images on their own, then you had Dropbox, folders, uploads, a mess. Same for dermatologists, skincare. So we made this thing that they can just, the doctor can like make images, they go into the computer, it's super easy, it doesn't take time, it's connected to the health information system. What happened in COVID, what Dermdus did actually, was that we developed an additional link there for the patient, so that if the doctor is communicating with WhatsApp, if they communicate by phone, by some whatever telehealth provider, if patient sends wants to send an image, then the doctor just generates a link to this patient, and then there is a structured, standardized guideline for the patient to upload the image, and the image will be put into the same database, into the same kind of workflow where images come from GPs or specialists or skin doctors or wound doctors, so that there's a track. So otherwise, if this data kind of goes into one WhatsApp, one email, so on, then it's a mayhem. But it's also a mayhem if it's like 5 separate telehealth providers on the market, because everybody has their own data. There should be an exchange layer where like critical information, like summary epicrises go to. And yeah, so it's about the kind of full care pathway. So like medical data comes from different places, and I think in essence this doctor to patient telehealth or remote consultation, it's like it's a very first step in digital health. I think it's not the best value providing solution that can be done. I think the asynchronous telemedicine, I think remote monitoring and therapy bring a lot of more value, but we have to do the step before with just the most simple thing, meaning like doctors to patient remote consultation.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for the 2 questions we had here from the group. I see there is one more question from the physical space, which will be the last one before moving into the moderated discussion. So I'm giving the word for the question from the Opera space.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm the representative of the hospital, local regional hospital. And you are talking about the connectivity. On the one side of the line is the patient with a wearable, with some device, with some mobile phone. And who is on the other side of the line? The hospitals at the moment are not ready. They do not have the infrastructure to manage the telehealth, to manage the care for the patient on the base of telemedicine. The hospitals, they need to build, and nobody is talking about how this will look, how this will be paid, how is looking the reimbursement for the activity who has to be managed by hospital at the moment when they will have the intention to start the telemedicine. I think this is one very important point, because if you want to provide telemedicine, you need the personalities, you need the capacities which will be able to provide the healthcare on the side of the provider. I'm not talking about the GP outpatient clinics. I'm talking about hospitals. Now at the moment, hospitals are full, and doctors, they do not have time to get a phone call or to talk with the patients. They need this clear need to establish the infrastructure or the standards for infrastructure at the hospitals, if they need the opportunity to manage this telemedical healthcare.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Preet. Yeah, do you want to react?
Yeah, I can start. So thank you for the comment. I think this is a very, very fair comment. Without financial incentives for providing telehealth or remote consultation, Estonia didn't have basically zero consultations before there was reimbursement by the insurances, and the difficulties in Estonia were the same. And this is the reason why most of the telehealth went through phone call. So a doctor could make a phone call to the patient or patient to the doctor, and it was basically handled as the same way as a face-to-face visit. But this is like just half the equation, because because in some cases you cannot have images there, you cannot have this visual part. But if you push too quickly to this video telemedicine, then on one part you have a patient with an iPhone or Android or whatever type of solution. On the other side, you have hospitals where you need to have cameras and microphones and all this setup, and this takes a lot of extra resources. So, and I think right now it's exactly something that should be incentivized, something that care providers need to figure out, and which should be also, there should be resources available for this support support personnel who are kind of just managing all of this equipment and this part in the hospital.
So from my perspective, I totally agree. This was one of the many reasons why telehealth did not take off in Israel during February, March, April, May, right? It's because of all these reasons. There's still questions about who's going to pay for it. Still questions about educating both sides, both the patient and the care provider, educating them as to what this is, the integration, the data overload. How do you discover what's actual insight and what's, false positive, false negative, blah, 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 blah. All these things, plus a bunch more were why telehealth didn't emerge, or at least didn't take off in Israel, because Israel has the technology for it. The technology is here. These products are here. These apps are here, yet they weren't still widely used. From the economic perspective, about the reimbursement that was mentioned, I think both you guys and myself have a benefit that we live in countries that have some kind of formalized national system behind it, right? And so once the telehealth solution finally reaches approval for reimbursement, at least it can be rolled out. If I compare this as to the United States, which is a complete catastrophe, as we all know, even telehealth solutions that are approved may be only approved in one state or for one demographic, and there's not going to be a universal pricing for it. So in a weird way, I think countries that have a nationalized system behind it, whether it's Germany, whatever form of nationalized system, will actually have a leg up in rolling out telehealth solutions, because they can address the economic issues of reimbursement at a national level, which is different than India and the United States primarily. But yeah, I agree. That's what you mentioned are part of the issues of why there wasn't a bigger rollout in Israel.
Thank you very much, guys. Is this a reaction to the previous question, or is it an additional question from the
Excuse me, can I have a very brief comment?
It's a reaction.
I think what is also very, very interesting point is the question of the electronic health record from the telemedical care. Because if you are providing the telemedicine, you should keep the information about patients, about provided care on some form or in some shape of the electronic health record. And this is the question of the hospital information systems. And definitely, I do not know any, and I know all information systems in this country, in the hospitals, any one of them do not have the electronic health ability to provide electronic health record for telemedical care. This is a big legal problem.
You know what my solution for that is to, you know, form a startup, get funding, and fix that problem.
In our case, we, as we kind of equalized remote consultation with the face-to-face consultation, same amount of money, same everything. So you go to a pulmonologist on spot, or you have a phone call with a pulmonologist. So this was in the COVID time. Then the documentation was the same. So the documentation was exactly the same. Just there was a additional reimbursement coding, which was also done in 2 weeks, for that it is a telemedicine service. But everything else in terms of the documentation was the same. In the future, exactly, ideally there should be like a separate documentation standard or something like additional, which maybe captures the elements of the telehealth visit better. But for getting this going right now, I think most of the hospitals and the government officials here at least didn't see any need to make a different documentation standard for telehealth versus ambulatory face-to-face visit.
Thank you very much, Preet and Yoav as guest speakers. Thank you very much for the questions to the guest speakers. Let's move now to the moderated discussion, which will be specifically based around the Czech ecosystem and Czech problems, challenges, whatsoever. Before we move there, I prepared a small poll for you guys here, which I will pull onto the virtual platform that we are using for this call. There are 2 questions. First question is related to the fact if we can continue the discussion still in English, if we shall transfer to Czech, because I know that most of us who is going to remain for the discussion will be rather Czech-based participants. So this is my estimation that we'll probably switch to Czech, but I would like to get your confirmation on that. And the second is just which topics you would like to discuss most, because we have a limited time and it will take a couple of more days just to discuss whatever topics we might have now in mind. So I'll post a quick poll here. Please try to answer. It is a multiple choice questions over here, which I'm going to launch. Use your time during that process to get some coffee if you are joining virtually, or even go in Opera to take something to eat and come back. And in 3 minutes, we are starting with the moderated discussion, where you will still be able to go away and bring something to eat. So in 3 minutes, we are starting with the moderated discussion being moderated by docentka Lenka Holska from CIRC, and feel free to vote. In terms of the voting from the Opera physical space, I would just like to ask you, Dominika, then to tell me what is the overall feeling from the group. You don't have to vote virtually for all. So if you are still staying with us or already join us back after a very little break, I will still be glad to motivate you to vote in this short poll, especially on the first question, whether you want to continue in English or swap to Czech. The question which is in mind here, whether the international guests will stay with us for the moderated discussion. I know that that Yoav from Israel need to leave, so he already left. He's not going to stay. In case we are going to run in English, then potentially Preet and our guests from EIT Health will still stay with us. In case we'll swap to Czech, we will just continue in Czech. And some of these guests perhaps can still understand a little bit of Czech, so it does not really matter. It's up to you guys how you would prefer it. So please vote, especially on the first one, because it is important for us that we do understand each other for discussion. So I'm closing the voting in half a minute, and then we are starting with the moderated discussion. So Lenka, are you here with us? I can see you. Are we ready to start potentially? So I'm ending the poll right now and I'm showing the results to everybody. So you can see it's indifferent for the languages. We can continue in English. So we'll be happy to still have Beata and Eva and Preet with us here. In terms of the topics, the most who received the votes is the main barriers, challenges in implementation in the Czech Republic. So this is probably the first one we shall start with. And then perhaps if we have still enough time, we could move into some of the other ones, like what shall Czech digital startups do to succeed on the market, or transfer of ideas, learnings from Estonia and Israel to the Czech Republic, perhaps for this time. So the floor is yours, Lenka, and I'll be happy to contribute as well. And we are starting the moderation discussion right now with everybody who is here. Of course, we'll be more than happy if you can still switch on your cameras so we can see you wherever you are, and we can continue the discussion. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Michal, and good morning to everybody. I hope that you are not yet tired before lunch and we can continue fruitful discussion. I am happy that we have representatives of actually all types of stakeholders, starting with health insurance companies, over governmental representative from Czech Invest, to small companies, to hospitals and ambulances. And really, I see as the most important challenge and issues in the Czech country is the question of electronic health record, and then also implementation of telemedicine. We've seen also during the COVID phase that telemedicine is important, that it has really great advantages and can be useful not only in these situations, but in general also in really standard days. Just briefly commenting the standards, as there was the question how to integrate results from telemedicine into standard electronic health record. Really, if we have good standards implemented, not the Czech DASTA, which hopefully with the new law will be overcome, but it takes time and big fight. Then the new standards that are internationally recognized can not easily, but can implement everything, including the files with measured signals, like for example from pacemakers or continuous glucometer sensor and so on. So this is from technological point of view feasible. Now I will raise the question how each sector sees these challenges and future implementation of digital health and telemedicine in the Czech environment. So who will start? Who is raising the hand? No volunteers, so should I call? Well, as we see that some of these points are very difficult, especially from the financial point of view. So what you see from the point of view of health insurance companies, because some health insurance companies already agreed to reimburse telemedical activities and some not. So what is your viewpoint? Mrs. Vojtova, can you tell us something about this point? Not available.
Perhaps she's still on the break. I saw a raised hand by Mr. Potish from my ambulance.
Okay, so you are welcome, please.
Hello to everybody. Let me a few comments, please. The first issue what you are challenging now, because one of our companies is My Ambulance, is taking care of about 200,000 patients in primary care. And the big problem for us is to adapt to GDPR, because in it's good, during COVID it was useful, but how we can check that you are talking and who is introducing themselves? And now we are just before launching an app to communicate with patients, to share results, to avoid unnecessary phone calls to our physicians, because they take a lot of time to explaining. And this is the same issue. So, okay, we will introduce an app to our patients, but before we can allow the patient to use this app, we have to bring them to outpatient clinic and to sign an agreement that they will use this communication channel. When you compare it with a common physician, let's say an old physician in a village in Czech Republic who is taking care of about 2,000 patients, and they have no such issues, because the people coming there, they're talking, hey, hi, I'm Preet, and that's this. But when you are talking about telemedicine and about sharing data with patients, sharing results through telemedicine, it's a big problem. So we need for now judge expertise who will approve that this type of communication is approved or is safe, or we are with GDPR approved.
We discuss it also at the Medical Society, and at the moment there is a sort of a guideline recommendation for general practitioners in the first line, how to use these communication channels and how to be sure that they are talking or communicating via different channels with the patient. Anyway, it's like with all other approvals that during the physical meeting with the patient should sign a sort of an information consent that these channels will be used for telemedical communication, and that these IDs are his or her private IDs, and they can be used for the communication. If it is standard voice communication, so it's just on the both parts who is present and who can hear the interview, like if you meet the doctor somewhere on the street and ask him something. That's one way. Concerning the digital communication, of course the channels should be approved so that it's really private and just satisfying the GDPR conditions. So that's from the technology point of view what I can say to this. Maybe Preet can add from the experience from Estonia.
Yes, in terms of this is a big thing, like whether the patient actually is who the patient says they are. I can give an example of, we have a countrywide primary care information service, 1220. This has been running for last 10 years. You have some healthcare problem, in an anonymous way, you can call on this hotline. There are like a bunch of doctors and nurses there, and they can just give you the first aid advice, basically. As I mentioned, we have this ID card and a mobile ID authentication measures, two-factor authentication. We can go, this is a separate thing. So we can go online to bank accounts, to like vote online, whatever. What can be done now is that when you call to the GP's anonymous line, you can also do a non-anonymous service, so that basically they will generate like a prompt on the phone, and then you put in a password, and then they can see that, okay, this is exactly the person who they should be talking with. And then based on this information, they can look at the health data, health information data, what is in the health information system. So this is one way to authenticate. It can, if it's just for the phone service, it is also the same. So it's same for the banks. If a bank calls me and they want me to like confirm something or like sign a new service, then they will use the same method, that it prompts me and I have to put the password in, and then they know that it is me. So that's for phones. If it's digital, then the authentication measures they're even more wider authentication measures. If you are in an app, then you can build in passwords, double passwords, mobile phone confirmations, like some, there are different providers available for this service. Link it to the SIM card. But I think, yeah, it's quite a lot is about authentication. So how do you authenticate like that this is the person that you are talking with? Because if it's just a phone call, then you don't know.
Thank you. Any comment from your side, Mr. Potish?
Yes, perhaps. You know, currently it's very common that people are calling to their physicians. My name is Marek Potish, and I want to ask about these and these issues, or about these and these results. And that's this. This is common practice. There is no PIN code, no password generations, nothing. And now we are introducing app, and it's a barrier to introducing this, because a lot of patients, oh, it's complicated. For me, it's much better to just pick up the phone and call. So we can see it as a barrier. We will see how we'll be successful with introducing this app. Okay, we have 200,000 patients. We introduce some incentives to our staff to patients approved to use this channel, but we will see in, let's say, 6 months, what percentage of our clients will accept this communication, because it seems to be a bit more complicated. In Czech, we have the advantage that a lot of people use the phone banking, so it could be the same, it looks the same. Even the company who developed this app for us is the company who developed this for banks. So we'll see, and I will let you know in 6 months how we are successful with this.
Thank you. And I'll try again to ask probably Mrs. Hlaváčová or Mrs. Vojtová to comment from the side of the health insurance companies. Do you hear me? Can you? Yes, so Mrs. Hlaváčová.
Oh, hello. I'm actually from the Ministry of Health, and I'm not in the position to comment from the point of view of the Ministry of Health and the agenda on e-health and digital health, because I'm not responsible for this branch. My responsibility lies within the communication of patient organizations and communication of the work of Ministry of Health and the participation of patients as public, as informed public to it. But thank you very much for this debate, because it's not only the COVID crisis that shows us the grave importance to speed up the solutions on the e-health and digital health agenda. And we were very, very happy that the insurance companies did very quick steps to enable the reimbursement of the consultations online during the crisis, that they still continued. Actually, why I'm online is that I'm myself at home. I have been seen by doctor yesterday to let me be in here. So actually it is something that is happening in practice now, but what we really need is the legislature to come along as well and to catch up with this. So that's why there is a law on the environment, on the electronic health being prepared. And what's really important, the law, the act on the healthcare services is now being discussed among the ministries in the consultations, and what we are suggesting now, some of the changes lies within the e-health environment, and which is to enable the online consultations to be based on law, as well as the online solutions, and the we don't actually have the direct term yet for providing these services of telemedicine and telemedicine consultations. But what is really important, that for the insurance companies to be able to lawfully reimburse these products and these services, is that the legislature should be amended as well, and the apps the proposal is to be registered as the medical device as well. So it will be really great if we have this discussion among the stakeholders, be it the insurance companies, the medtech companies, and so on, and with the help of the best practices from abroad. Thank you very much. I've been so glad to be able to hear the good practices, to have the legislation we need now to catch up with the practice, because what the colleague from Israel said, and thank you very much for it, the demand and the situation of the healthcare providers and the tech companies offers may be very different so far, which also the COVID crisis showed us.
Thank you. And my question to you still is, what is, when you said that you are also communicating with the patient organization, so what is the view from the patient side?
So generally, I will be speaking from knowing the standpoint of the more informed part of patients, which is chronic patients. Because we have at the ministry we have a consultation procedure consisting mainly of the patient council, which is formed by the representatives of the chronic patients organizations. And I have to say this group is slightly different than the general public, because if you're a chronic patient, you are more likely to get in touch with more apps, the symptom trackers, and so on, and you're generally more informed about your health and your possibilities. So I have to say that I will be speaking more on the standpoint of these more informed chronic patients. And the view as at the Ministry of Health, we already discussed the e-prescriptions that are now in place, and we are discussing the tools to be coming in future. And we have to say that, or I have to say that that there is a huge need on the side of patients on these solutions, and also a great willingness to participate, to learn, and to be educated about it. The only thing that sometimes took us aback, and we are very glad for these comments, is of course the privacy, the safety of data, mostly among patients that are coping with more stigmatized diagnostics, some of the, and also in the field of the mental health, which actually is an area where we would like to involve more of the communication apps and so on, because mostly during the COVID crisis, our patients and the healthcare at the mental health hospitals are suffering from the lack of contact and so on very much. So we see general great acceptance, big need that is being vocalized to us, and we would love to communicate more with patient organizations in order also to be able to educate the end users to be actually able to use it, as well as the doctors as well, which is not our agenda in this. But yes, we see a great need, and the patients organizations that are very willing to cooperate in this, in the development as end users, and also in the communication of these tools, which will be very vital.
Thank you. Next, I saw before some hands rising in the physical space in Opero. Do you want to react or to raise another question or comments?
I think, yeah, we are okay. no hand raised.
Okay. Before there was also a comment from the hospital side that the infrastructure is in many cases not satisfactory and not supporting the area of developing digital health applications and telemedicine. And I must also say that in case there are these interdisciplinary projects, applications, so it's sometimes very difficult to apply at the different ministries, because for Ministry of Health, which is mostly focused on clinical research, it's too technological. Ministry of Industry says that well, it's not going to the industry, not producing new physical products. So I hope that Mr. Krechel from Czech Invest is online and hearing me. My question is whether Czech Invest is also planning to support new projects or calls for innovating the infrastructures, not only hardware, but also software and skills in healthcare as such, because I knew from the past that there were many calls going to IT support for companies, for SMEs. So is there anything in the near future planned for healthcare?
Mr. Krechel was sending me a private message that potentially he might have problems with the internet. So I'm not sure if he's here with us right now.
Yeah, it seems that he is not responding.
That's
so.
one of the unfortunate situations as well, which is kind of referring back to the hospitals not having sometimes shared good infrastructure for allowing virtual connections also on the side of some of the institutions as well. But it seems he's not here in terms of the
hearing us. Anyway, it should be definitely message from our meeting to not only to all participants, but maybe also to the governmental stakeholders, that what we see as major problems and what could be or should be done on their level, even if it goes through different programs financed from structural funds in the next period or other sources. What we really see as important step in this area. And in this connection, I would like to ask Preet again how it was in Estonia at the beginning. So how much initiative took the state and governmental financing in introducing the IT infrastructure to all society, because we know that you are really very good at it. So how was it at the beginning?
I'm not sure about the exact numbers, but I think it was EU resources to quite a big event, maybe 50-50, maybe 80-20, something like this. But the basics was done, I think, like with the one key thing is the common identificator and the extra data exchange layer. So this was a basis for the health information system, which is also kind of infrastructure. But I think the numbers weren't that big in the end, because I don't know, it's really hard to compare to current time, but at that time the cost was really marginal. If you see across the pond, we see, I think, Helsinki region paying $1 billion for Epic system implementation, and I think for Estonia at that time it was a few million euros, this 15 years ago, just to build the infrastructure. But the big part of the infrastructure is also the digital other infrastructure elements. So it really depends on what is there. Because what the government did is they involved quite a lot of the existing systems. So there were like these siloed solutions all around, a little bit competing, a little bit kind of keeping the data and so on. So it was a lot of stakeholder management, a lot of deals, but the government took the main initiative. So that was the core thing. Nobody else can implement standards but the government, because it's just everybody else in healthcare has still their own incentives and own interests, and quite often the benefits come to the patient, but the benefits will come to the doctors, but in some time. So it will take time when the benefits come. So it's investment into the future, but this is why when, for example, I've been consulting Moldova for regarding e-health implementation and what we're and also some Arab countries. But what is needed is actually really good use cases, small, quick starts, and building a lot of stakeholders getting kind of and understanding what the new digital world would mean. So these smaller, easy to adopt use cases. So for example, like with DermTest exactly, we went to Moldova, we built up the pilot, and everybody understood. It's a complex service because there's dermatologists, there's GPs and so on, but everybody understood what it meant in terms of data transfer. And the same with Estonia. So DermTest was in terms of e-consultation service, which is doctor-to-doctor telemedicine. We were leading, or we made half of the number of e-consultations before. And we took the focused area, we built an example, and then this example was also transferred to the other e-consultation service elements. So having these small examples, but actually still keeping in mind that these examples have to be sustainable. And it's a really delicate thing, because easily can also make more silos and more split kind of areas. So there isn't like a very short, very short suggestion, but the thing is that there is a lot of kind of effort needed and a lot of collaboration needed, and it's there should be leaders taking responsibility and saying and pushing this and making it like. Making change like adaptability to change, like the culture.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, what is the view from companies, because they play important role finally in implementation, which is demanded from the users. So what is your view? We have representatives of at least 2 or 3 companies here. Are you connected, Mr. Škoda or Miss?
If I may, we have raised the hand, so there was a
yes.
comment to the previous issue. So please, I'm passing the word.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, first, maybe also I can answer to your question regarding like the point of view. So my point of view is of a little startup. So for us, and it's connected, right? It's tricky to find who is our client, kind of, whether it's the hospital that somehow wants to be innovative, but depends where it takes the money, right, to do some innovation, or whether it's the government and trying to like get some funding there, or whether it's someone else. So this is tricky for us. Like at the moment, we are doing it for a hospital, but yeah, we'll see how this develops. And my question that I wanted to ask, maybe to Estonia, but also to the Czech Republic. So you were mentioning that in the COVID time, that this health insurance fund of Estonia has decided to fund the telemedicine, right, to reimburse this. So this sounded like quite a big innovation, or like tricky step of this health insurance fund to do, that it wasn't forced by the government, but just decided that maybe it's worth it. And I'm always thinking that insurance companies could like be motivated to, you know, digitalize stuff, because they will save money and it will like be better for them. Of course, it's a big long term, but it doesn't seem to me that it's too long term. So they could be also innovation drivers. But it doesn't seem that this is happening usually.
I think we have a different insurance system. So we have one kind of like highly regulated social insurance model. So we have one insurance. And it's not directly under the ministry. It works on their own, and it's kind of independent, but kind of not. But I think everybody worked together in the beginning of COVID. But I think why this was all. But COVID wasn't the trigger. The plan was to start with reimbursement of remote consultations already in beginning of 2021. But it just made it a lot faster. And I think they just saw the fund saw the opportunity to make it even faster. And I think the incentives for the insurances for like reimbursing telemedicine are like so and so, but because there can be misuse. For example, like now they're doing audits, but sometimes reimbursement was claimed even if there was like a phone call of like Easter time. No, there is no time. Okay, reimbursement. So these kinds of problems. So structuring this stuff was difficult. So insurances definitely see these kinds of risks. If you digitalize more, then you can lower these risks if there is like specific forms to implement this. But I don't know what would have happened with this implementation without COVID. But I think everybody won for implementing this like in this fast way, including insurance, government, people, and the hospitals, because it's just decreases face-to-face connections and the risk of the disease. So.
Thank you. What I know from the Czech environment, that the several health insurance companies agreed to reimburse telemedicine during COVID period, and some decided to continue. The largest insurance company, VZP, is now in the state that they are considering this, but at the moment there are just a few telemedical interventions that are reimbursed from VZP, and they go mostly to chronic patients. One big group are patients with pacemakers. I am not sure now how is it with diabetic patients, but at least it was negotiated in the past. But with the large companies, it always takes time, and with this insurance company, it's really long run, and sometimes very difficult to finally prove that also from the economic point of view, it's finally win-win solution for everybody. So at least from the medical professional societies, there is push to define better also these telemedical interventions and for their reimbursement. And as Preet says, it must be well defined what is considered as a telemedical or telehealth intervention, not asking for time or day of week, so that it's really easily also introduced in the electronic health record that there was this telemedical either consultation or analysis of digital results and so on. So this is still under development, and hopefully with the new legal regulations on health services and the electronic health, it will be more precisely defined. And unfortunately, both these regulations had to be finalized last year in winter. Then it was postponed, then COVID came, and till now it's still on the governmental level and not in the parliament. I have the information, so hopefully it will speed up, and maybe Anna Hlaváčová knows more how far in the process these regulations are now.
Yeah, so the act on the healthcare, which will be vital for making it possible to reimburse or to make the remote consultations as part of legal part of providing the services, is now in the outer consultation phase. So it's not yet at the governmental level. and actually I think on 14th of September this process was closed, and now it's discussed within the ministry with the consultation bodies, with the so it's not yet there, and we just very much hope that the process will be quick, that we will be able to work with the comments quickly enough, and also that it will pass smoothly through the parliament, because the elections are in a year time, so it will be very very useful to have the smooth process. And the law on the electronic health, I believe that is the same. It just has been in the inner circles of the consultations, and are now yet still in the ministerial consultations, so not yet in the parliament.
Thank you very much. So, new questions or comments from Opera? No? So the other participants, you may raise your hand. Companies, Mediver or Pierce House Cyber? No, so maybe because we are just exceeding the planned time, I can summarize that it really seems that the issues that were discussed and presented also in the invited talks around telemedicine and electronic health records, that are very important, and really this presentation showed up that it's very important really to push this digital development in healthcare, and to find also ways how to define good standards for transfer of data, and not only data but also information about all processes in medical interventions, from doctors to patients, and between doctors, and then also from doctors or hospitals to health insurance companies, and also to push so that more interventions done in digital world are recognized by insurance companies for reimbursement. It's also showed up that many ambulances and hospitals don't have yet the proper digital equipment, and not in all cases it's possible to cover the cost directly from the profit of these organizations, and that basically the main infrastructure should be funded from larger funds like the structural funds, that not only nice highways or cycling roads should be financed from these sources, but also the digital highway, as we can say, should be financed from these sources in the future. And I hope that with the joint effort of all stakeholders, we'll be able to also be heard by the government that decides about the main priorities, and this health should be one of the main priorities also for the government. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lenka, for this moderation of the discussion. Thank you to all the participants that joined us today virtually or physically. I just wanted to say that, of course, if you are there still in the Opera space in Prague, feel free to network over there with the remaining participants. Otherwise, virtually, we are still being available here in case you want to talk together as a group. In case you would like to network a little bit with somebody that is on the call, please let me know, and I can make you a separate breakout room then to call you back to discuss. Otherwise, thanks very much for joining the EIT Health Morning Health Talk organized by Dex Innovation Center. And just at the very end, I'm putting back again some of my slides that I presented at the very beginning. And I actually find out that probably you didn't see it correctly on your screen. So give me a second. I'll try to put it there. The main importance is there. I would like to show you the 3 events that we are organizing still with EIT Health in autumn. The first one of them is the hackathon, which is called the Dexits Hack. This is going to be organized in the middle of October in Liberec. If you want to be part of that, let us know. The second one, just to remind, is the EIT Health Innovation Day. That's going to be a hybrid event organized primarily for students and startups on the 23rd of October. And the last one is the 4 Digital Health Acceleration Program that we are running throughout November and first part of December, purely virtually. So if you're interested in being part of that anyhow, as a participant, as a stakeholder, as a partner, please let us know. We are so happy for your participation today, and I wish you a really nice afternoon.
And Michał, I just wanted to remind everyone that both topics, telemedicine and digital health, are eligible within the coming REIS call. So if there are any ideas, or there are startups who have ideas how to solve certain challenges on the Czech market, then please reach out to our colleagues in DEX and learn details regarding the call. It will be published 1st of October. I think this is also a good way of small step forward that we as EIT Health are happy to support.
Thanks for reminding that, Eva. Thank you very much to everybody, and I wish you a really nice afternoon, and especially for Czech participants, the extended weekend, because we have holiday on Monday. Enjoy it.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Greetings to everybody.